we're going to show how to do psoas release in the chair. Since it's a hip flexor muscle, so it's harder to, I'm going to grab a chair really quick. Since it's harder to get to when somebody's bent over, and then we'll show a piriformis release as well. We'll do that too. So I like to use a chair when I'm doing chair massage a lot because I'm a little bit taller, so it's harder to get leverage down unless I want to get on my knees, and I don't want to be on my knees all day. So if I have a chair available, I'll use it. But one of the main things that I wanted to talk about, since the size of your person is going to determine whether or not it's actually whether or not you can get into the psoas. Someone's a bit bigger, it's going to be harder to do it in this position. So I like to approach it from kind of a myofascial or tissue approach. So since you have your hood, I'm going to use your hood as an example. So if the psoas is right here pulling this taut, if I have one of the other hip flexor muscles that are tight too, it's going to pull on the psoas as it pulls. So I might be able to get a psoas release without actually directly working on the psoas. So sometimes, depending on the size of the person, if I can't go directly to the psoas, then I'll work to release the tissue in the front, and that will in turn release, at least partially release the psoas. So I'll show how to kind of get into the area for one, and then also just areas that I like to work on the legs and things to release the whole tissue on the front. So the psoas, first off, is a muscle that attaches from the anterior spine. So if somebody has low back pain, which almost every person that sits at a desk will complain about low back pain, but they never think it's the psoas because they always think if I have low back pain, then it's coming from the back. But the psoas causes a lot of the low back pain because since it's a hip flexor and you sit all day, it's going to shorten all day. And then people always say when I stand up, oh, it hurts really bad because the psoas has to be stretched out and it's really tight. So psoas is what I like to work when somebody complains about low back pain. I'll usually check QL or check the low back muscles. And if they're really tight, I'll work them, but a lot of times I'll just try to do some psoas stuff. So anyway, that being said, Deb's nice, works out a lot, so she's easy person to get into the area for. But you'll find the ASIS, or the kind of the point of the hip, and then you can just work your way. So you got to be really slow depending on how tight the person is. So I'm just going right around the inside of the hip and working my way slowly in. How's that feel, Deb?
Feels fine.
Is it a little ticklish feeling, or is it
no.
Okay, good? So I'm just slowly working, just wiggling my way in. How's that feel? Starting to get more tender?
So far, so good.
Okay. And then the iliacus too comes together with the psoas to the iliopsoas tendon, so they both become one muscle. So if you were to release iliacus, you also would be able to get some psoas release there too. So an iliacus is going to be just on the inside of the hip, and that might be easier to get to, so that's a little easier. How's that feel?
Good.
Okay. Deb's immune to pain, so.
So what are you feeling for? You're medial of the ASIS, but like what are you feeling for if you're describing how you know when you're on it?
So you got to be careful because there's a ligament that goes from the ASIS to the somewhere on the pubic bone. I don't remember the exact position, but that's going to feel like a tight muscle, but it's not a tight muscle, it's just a ligament. So you want to make sure that you're off of that. So I'll usually just come up on kind of just above the ASIS and then come into the bowl, kind of where the iliac crest is, and then kind of the bowl of the rest of the hip. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, and then I'm just feeling for the tension in the muscle, just like you'd feel, tension in any of the other muscles. How's that feel?
Oh, good.
Is it intense at all, or is it?
Curved around.
Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to, I could probably get better, so I'm trying to get out of the way of the camera, but I could get a lot better leverage if I came in from this direction, because now I'm leaning my body into it, so it's requiring a lot less effort. And how's the pressure? Is it a little more? Okay. And then again, so that's iliacus. So I would just come. So a lot of times people will find the psoas by finding the navel and then the ASIS and going about a third of the way in from the ASIS between that. And that'll usually kind of get you into part of the meat of the psoas. And then again, depending on how loose somebody's abs are and the tissue are, you could go right into the anterior bodies and the the anterior transverse processes of the spine to get into the attachments there. So we'll see if we can get in there for Deb. And Deb went to the bathroom first, which is good. So if somebody hasn't gone to the bathroom first, I can see how this would be a problematic. Yeah, how's that feel? Okay. Right there. So once I find it, I like to do a lot of trigger points, so I'll do a lot of doing some pressure and leaving the pressure there, and then relieving the pressure, and then putting more pressure on, trying to keep the pressure at maybe a 6 or a 7. For you, it's probably not that bad. Deb's pretty good. She can handle a good beating, so it takes a lot to get her to beat. So that's what I do for the psoas if I was going to work it directly. A lot of people, it's really hard to get into that area. So what I'll do is I'll feel along the quads and see if I can feel. Typically people right around maybe a third of the way down the quad, you'll be able to feel a knot. Yeah, like right there, that tender. So I'll do trigger point stuff on there. I could do a little bit of compressions depending on the person's side. If I wanted to, I could stand to get a little bit better leverage. How's that feel?
Feels amazing.
A little deeper, but I don't have to do as much effort. But again, my whole focus here is I'm just trying to lengthen out the tissue, and if I can lengthen the tissue, same concept of using this, if I can get the tissue of the leg to release, then I'm going to have a myofascial release, and then the psoas is going to have less tension put on it. And even though I might not have relieved the whole psoas problem, I've at least contributed to alleviating the psoas. So, how does that feel?
Good.
Okay, let's have you stand up for just a second, and then so then the last thing that I'll do is, since a lot of times you're doing chair massage, it's about 15 minutes for a client, maybe 10 minutes, sometimes less than that. It's really hard to get a lot of work done, so I'll try to show them a stretch. So a really easy stretch to do. There's lots of stretches you can do laying down and stuff, but you don't want to do that on the floor in a corporate setting. So I'll just teach them a stretch. So I'll take them, go ahead and go into like a lunge position, and then go ahead when you're in the lunge, try to bring your hips forward. So forward at the hips. So you want to feel a stretch in the top part of your leg, kind of in your groin. How's that? Right in there. And she's doing really good at going into it. So that's going to be a really easy way to teach them a psoas stretch. And I'll tell them to do this instead of doing this, because again, they're sitting down, so they're touching their toes all day basically, right? All they'd have to do is extend their leg. And you're doing basically a toe touch in your chair all day. So to do this stretch isn't going to be very effective for you because you're doing it all day. What you really need to stretch out is the front, because the front's what's getting tight, and that is doing kind of like the hidden problem for low back pain. How does it feel right to left? What do you think? You didn't spend a lot of time on it.